next to me right now.
That's why we have it on the beautiful shot of New York City and the not beautiful shot of whatever that was.
Seriously.
No, the people don't need it.
The people would love to see it. I told you.
That's all you're getting, America.
Good morning. On that note, you are watching Fox and Friends First on this Thursday. I'm Jillian Mealy.
And I'm Todd Pyro, in for Rob Schmidt. Thank you for starting your day with us. All right, straight to our top story, a serious one here. An unprecedented show of force like you've never seen before for New Year's Eve. Law enforcement across the country beefing up security from New York City to Las Vegas. Casey Stiegel is here now live in the studio to tell us what's being done to help keep millions of Americans safe. Casey?
Guys, good morning to you. Law enforcement officials say get ready to see security like you have never seen before and all across the country. The NYPD is beefing up its counterterrorism unit. Those heavily armed officers will descend on Times Square as people pack in to watch the annual ball drop. The Big Apple has been the target, as you know, of 2 recent terror attacks, so the city is on especially high alert, now on the heels of a new threat from ISIS, urging fighters to kill drunk partiers, ringing in 2018. Now, security experts say cops will not only be looking for the obvious but subtle hints of trouble, too.
Look for that individual whose bag doesn't match his clothing. He's got a $1,000 bag and he's wearing, Dickies. I would be looking for somebody who's white-knuckling a bag. When you see them holding onto that thing really tight, if he's barreling with those eyes and steaming towards a direction, holding a bag, knuckling it, it's a problem.
There will also be increased security at and on top of office towers and hotels. This obviously in response to the Las Vegas massacre. Nevada lawmakers approving more than $350,000 for New Year's Eve security compared to $120,000 spent last year. And the National Guard will also have boots on the ground.
For years past, we had 2 quick response teams on the east side and the west side of the Las Vegas Strip to ensure we had response in case of a critical incident. But this year we are breaking them down into smaller teams, and the numbers are going to be doubled.
Now, even the internet will be heavily patrolled as well. Law enforcement agencies will be vetting social media, basically scouring the web for any credible threats that are out there.
I'm sure they will be. I mean, keeping everyone safe where they're located, keeping everyone safe online, because that's where oftentimes a lot of these threats pop up.
It's a big job.
We live in scary times.
Absolutely.
Casey, thanks.
All right, now to a Fox News alert. At least 40 are dead and dozens more injured after bombing attacks overnight in Kabul, Afghanistan. At least 3 explosions, including a suicide attack erupting near a Shiite Muslim cultural center and an Afghan news agency. Fox News is told no U.S. or coalition troops were hurt, but many of the victims are students. The Afghan president is calling the attacks a crime against humanity. The Taliban denies any involvement, but in recent months, ISIS has been targeting Shiite neighborhoods.
Also breaking overnight, Russian President Vladimir Putin just called a bombing at a St. Petersburg supermarket terrorism. The homemade device packed with shrapnel exploding inside a store. 13 people were hurt. No terrorist organization has claimed responsibility. You'll recall Putin phoned President Trump earlier this month, thanking him for a tip that helped stop other bombings in Russia's second largest city.
President Trump ending 2017 on a high note, visiting some of our nation's heroes at a West Palm Beach fire station.
While he touted his accomplishments, he also fired back at jabs from his predecessor. Griff Jenkins joins us now from Washington, D.C. with more. Good morning, Griff.
Good morning, Todd and Jillian. Yeah, it's his final days, and yesterday the president spent it visiting Palm Beach Fire Station number 2, thanking firefighters, paramedics, and first responders for their service, and delivering somewhat of a report card of his own administration's accomplishments.
The stock market hit a new high 84 times since we won the election on November 8th of last year. So that's something we can all be proud of. That's a record level. We have the all-time record for stopping ridiculous regulations, and we're very proud of that record. Now you can go back to work and do your job.
He has also stayed fairly busy on Twitter, addressing all number of things from next year's legislative agenda to the Russia probe, and even taken a shot at former President Obama. As news of the defeat of ISIS in Iraq comes to light, he tweeted this picture comparing the day he was inaugurated on January 20th with an estimated 35,000 ISIS fighters controlling areas of Iraq and Syria to new estimates last week down to just 1,000 fighters left. But the former president hasn't remained silent. In an interview with the soon-to soon-to-be married Prince Harry. He took aim at President Trump without mentioning him by name.
One of the dangers of the internet is that people can have entirely different realities. They can be just cocooned in information that reinforces their current biases.
Now, there are no public events scheduled down in Florida, but the president will stay there through the new year. We're learning, however, guys, that the president, as soon as he returns, is scheduling a retreat at Camp David with Speaker Paul Ryan and Leader Mitch McConnell to map out that legislative agenda. Who knows what's on it? Maybe infrastructure, maybe health care. We'll have to find out. Maybe we'll find out on Twitter.
It's a lot of maybes.
No matter what it is, it's going to be a very busy 2018, to say the least. Griff Jenkins, thank you.
A recent Pew Research study compares how President Trump and past presidents have been treated by the media. And you can see as you progress from Clinton to Bush to Obama to Trump, President Trump wins for the worst, most negative coverage.
RNC spokesperson Kayleigh McEnany says this is exactly why the president tweets, to get messages to his supporters that the media won't.
Twitter is really indispensable to what the president is doing. It's, as you said, his direct connection to the American people. He is facing unprecedented hatred from some members of the mainstream media. You see the Harvard study that said 80% of the coverage of his first 100 days was negative. The new MRC Media Research Center study said 90% of the coverage in his first year was negative. He has to use Twitter to attack the fake news onslaught coming directly at him, unlike President Obama, where most of the coverage was positive. According to a Harvard study.
Meantime, a former State Department employee with ties to Senator John McCain subpoenaed over connections to the fake Trump dossier. The House Intelligence Committee demanding answers from McCain Institute staffer David Kramer about his reported firsthand knowledge of the bogus report. Now, according to court records, Kramer met with the author hired by Fusion GPS to write the salacious dossier that helped start the FBI Russian probe. Roy Moore still not giving up weeks after Alabama's special Senate election. His campaign filing a complaint alleging voter fraud and calling to postpone the certification of the declared winner, Democrat Doug Jones. The complaint also says Moore successfully completed a polygraph test, claiming the multiple sexual misconduct allegations made against him are false. The state board is scheduled to meet today to certify the results, even though Moore has not yet conceded.
Well, the happiest place on earth is back up and running after being left in the dark. A massive power outage stranding Disneyland riders during one of the park's busiest weeks.
We're the small world and all the lights go off.
What do you feel about the idea of a power failure kind of affecting your day?
It's disappointing.
People had to be escorted off nearly a dozen rides after more than 20 minutes, but the good news is no one was hurt. Disney is blaming a transformer issue and restored power within 6 hours, but some guests are demanding a refund. Dozens of passengers stranded in frigid temperatures overnight. Just take a look. What happened is a ferry crashed in New York City. 27 people were on board when the boat hit a sandbar. One passenger said it felt like a car slamming on the brakes. Larger rescue boats had to stay away because the water was too shallow. So responders had to evacuate passengers 2 at a time. It took about 3 hours to get everyone off the ferry.
Work to remove the historic Jackson magnolia tree deemed dangerous now underway. Employees at the White House starting to cut down part of the 200-year-old tree. The U.S. National Arboretum recommending the removal because the tree, well, it's dead and it's falling down. First Lady Melania Trump requested that the wood from the iconic tree be preserved and is hoping to plant a new magnolia in the same place. And like we said yesterday, this wasn't Melania walking around the grounds being like, that one's out, that one's out.
You're gone.
The tree was going to kill reporters. And so Melania stepped up and helped.
Well, it could have caused some damage.
It wasn't, yeah, we didn't talk to the tree and say it's going to murder the reporters. Good point.
Treegate will continue to follow it. All right, it is 10 minutes after the hour. A disturbing new threat from ISIS calling on lone wolves to use America's gun laws to build an arsenal for terror. The man behind the message claiming to be an American.
And we told you about this yesterday. Disney Resorts doing away with the Do Not Disturb sign to keep better tabs on guests. But is this a necessary step or going too far? Why our next guest says this is our future.
Take more photos in the woods. How else are you going to meet unsuspecting hikers?
Take up a new hobby in the new year. Literally anything that'll keep you from running again.
Well, liberals are melting down over Vanity Fair, urging Hillary Clinton to hang up her presidential hopes. Is this the height of hypocrisy? Good morning to you and welcome back. Disney World hotels now getting a major security overhaul. The most magical place on earth announcing that employees will conduct daily inspections of every room at their resorts. So the question is this an invasion of privacy or a good move to protect against security threats? Here now to weigh in is national security analyst for the Clarion Project, Ryan Morrow. Thanks for joining us this morning, Ryan.
Thanks for having me.
Now, let's go over what's changing as far as Disney resorts go. The do not disturb signs that you typically see, that's going to be changed to room occupied. As we mentioned, employees must enter rooms every day, and there will be changes to launch this at all resorts in the upcoming weeks. Do you think this is a good idea?
I do, because it's not like there's going to be random inspections where they just come in and start going through all of your stuff. The idea is that they don't want there to be a 24-hour period where someone can just be using their room, which is part of a private business that can make these types of decisions, using that room to engage in criminal activity or even terrorist or violent activity. We saw this with Stephen Paddock, where he took several days to assemble an arsenal and prepare the attack using his hotel room. And going even further back than that, we know that 9/11, the hijackers did this, and it's just kind of widely known in the law enforcement community that this is a typical practice of criminals and terrorists, and you've got to respond to it.
I was actually out in Las Vegas following that shooting, covering it for about a week, and a lot of the hotels had changed their policy in Las Vegas after that happened. After 58 people were killed, hundreds of others injured. That happened back in October. I wondered, and a lot of us talked about, how long are some of these changes going to last? And now you see that this could be what we're used to now going forward.
I think it is inevitable, and that's because if you want to see the future of the United States, you need to look at Europe, and then if you want to see the future of Europe, you look at Israel and the Middle East. And when I've traveled to several Middle Eastern countries, I've seen these security procedures in place, and that includes oftentimes metal detectors at the front of those hotels, the ones that are bigger. And I've got to tell you, it actually wasn't that bad. I don't want us to get into a constant strategy of defensive measures that just makes life more and more of a hassle, but this makes sense, and I even forgot I was going into the hotel through metal detectors as I was traveling. So there's a good way to do this.
You know, Disney has not said that they did this as a response to what happened in Las Vegas. I think a lot of people are assuming that could be the case. But I guess the question is, at what point is it going to be too much? At what point could people take this as an invasion of privacy? Because look, you could be sleeping and someone's knocking, announcing themselves, and then they come in and then you wake up. Are they going through your things? Are they using a metal detector to see if there are any explosives? Like, at what point do you think a line could be crossed?
If we get to the point where they aren't calling the room and they're just kind of going in there at any time and looking through your bags, then I would say that's an overreaction. But I don't think we're going to get there, because businesses have an incentive to keep the customer happy, but also to keep the customer safe. All you need is even a thwarted plot that was being assembled from within a hotel room for a business to lose a lot of money. And you also only need a story of a privacy violation to lose a lot of money. So it's in the business's interest to find that fine line, and I think that this falls into the realm, as is being described, the realm of responsible. But it's true, ultimately the way we need to fight this threat is going to be overseas, and as well as the intelligence operations domestically. We can't just constantly respond to everything by saying, well, what defensive measure can we put in place, until eventually we're all just living in our homes and not going outside.
Yeah. Ryan Morrow, thank you for joining us this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
I think at this point, Todd, a lot of people say better to be safe than sorry.
And I think about all my family trips to Disney growing up. Never thought about this. My gosh. All right. Time now is 18 minutes after the hour. It's been the rallying cry for Democrats since Inauguration Day.
And I will fight every day until he is impeached. Impeach 45.
Well, Democrats now trying to turn those words into action. The new online army and the billionaire liberal behind it.
Chelsea Handler is slamming President Trump again, this time about, quote, killing birds. Handler tweeting, another nice touch. Trump administration eases rule against